Hi, my name is Cassandra from WeHelpPeople.life. I'm an acceptance and commitment therapy practitioner and a trainee health psychologist. This is the second in my series of videos where I'm going to take a look with you at some different mental health conditions that we're able to help with here at We Help People. And I really hope that this is going to help you to understand these conditions a little better and also maybe challenge any stigma that you might encounter around those conditions. Today, I want to explore anxiety because it is a really common mental health condition that we encounter a lot in our work here. And it's a condition that a lot of us, if not all of us, experience at some point during the course of our lives. Now, just because a mental health condition is relatively common, or in the case of anxiety, what some mental health professionals have even called ubiquitous, that's that it's just everywhere in our society. Well, just because that is the case, it doesn't mean that anxiety can't be extremely serious and have a terrible and debilitating impact on the life and the health of somebody who's struggling with it. Generalised anxiety disorder can impact on the everyday life of anyone who's been diagnosed with it really seriously. But also, anxiety disorders are an umbrella term for many different clinical conditions that you might be familiar with. They include phobias, panic disorders, and social anxiety. So, is stress the same thing as anxiety? Well, as psychologists, when we talk about stress, what we're often referring to are stressors. And these are the factors that contribute to those feelings of anxiety or the processes that lead us to feeling anxious. And these can be environmental factors. That's things going on in the world. They impact on us negatively, cause us to feel that range of difficult emotions and thoughts. But they can also be challenging life events. Everything from moving home to sitting an exam or losing your job, being bereaved or diagnosed with a serious health condition. So in psychology, when we look at anxiety, we say that it has an adaptive quality to it. But what do we mean by that? Well, that means that anxiety and the behaviours that result from that have a protective or evolutionary quality to them. What we're dealing with here is our own nervous and limbic systems and the way we've developed and evolved as human beings in order to survive. So, let's imagine all those years ago, when our ancestors were on the grassy plain hunting and gathering. What was it that kept us alive when the Smilodon came trotting along and suddenly decided to try and eat us? Well, of course, what happened was our amazing brains alerted us to that threat and told our bodies to deliver all those stress hormones to prepare us to fight or run. So all those chemicals, it would rush around our bodies, dilating our blood vessels, preparing our muscles and our perception for that life-threatening event. And our bodies and our brains, well, they did a fantastic job of keeping us alive quite often. The trouble is, our busy modern world and our life has evolved faster than our bodies have. And so also, our bodies did such a great job of keeping us alive that nature concluded, why change that? Of course, today, we're not being hunted by those giant predators, are we? No, we're not. But the thing is, our bodies and brains do not know this. To our brain, a threat is a threat. So the possibility that you might be made redundant takes the place of that saber-toothed cat. You could perceive that as an existential threat to your life and to your well-being. And then, of course, your amazing brain floods your body with all those stress hormones ready for fight or flight to save you from that threat that you're facing. Your brain and its chemical functions do not process the context of what's happening during that, because time is of the essence when it's trying to save your life. So let's just take a moment, and I'll just invite you to recognize that if we do experience anxiety, that we're normal. And you know what? That's just what a human being does when they're faced with threat. Now, this is especially important right now when so many of us, in fact, possibly most of us, are facing a sense of anxiety because of the threat of a global pandemic. It would be peculiar and even a bit puzzling if we didn't feel anxious when we're faced with an existential threat to our world and our way of life. So, it can also be that your body and mind will relate to a perceived threat as powerfully as it would an actual threat. So, as an example, if you're like John Paul, my colleague here at We Help People, and you've got a fear of clowns, for example, let's be honest here, sorry John Paul, the likelihood of one popping out of a drain and attacking you is probably quite slim. But that doesn't mean for you that fear and that anxiety that you're experiencing around that isn't very real. This is what a phobia can feel like for people who are experiencing that, and from a perceived threat. And that's the power. That's the power of your incredible brain at work and in action. So, what does anxiety feel and look like for those experiencing it? What are those symptoms that you might encounter? Well, firstly, in short or acute anxiety, we've all been in this situation. Maybe we needed to do some public speaking, or somebody just cut us up in the traffic and we had to swerve. And when this happens, your body is immediately going to flood with stress hormones, and that can cause you to feel a little bit hot and a bit sweaty or clammy. It can make your heart feel like it's racing. You might feel a bit dizzy, or if it gets intense, maybe even a little bit sick. It's possible that you might experience a panic attack, which can also be really frightening and quite intense. If your anxiety is chronic, the picture can be more serious for you and your health in the long term. Now, chronic anxiety can make you feel very unwell indeed. In fact, you might go along to your GP because you're not feeling your best. You might have experienced headaches, backaches, stomach problems, fatigue, disturbed sleep, chronic pain, and you might be wondering why all those symptoms are happening for you. So many people can be genuinely surprised that their GP might tell them that these symptoms might have been caused either wholly or partially by anxiety. Because these physical symptoms, they can make you feel very poorly, and they can worsen, trigger or cause a variety of other chronic conditions, and that might include things like fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, irritable bowel syndrome and migraines. Chronic anxiety is also very, very bad for your heart and detrimental to your immune system. So you might find yourself catching more bugs, more colds and coughs and sneezes if you're struggling with this condition. You might also find yourself becoming more irritable. Your thoughts might race, or you might have problems with concentration and focus. You might develop depression alongside your anxiety, and that's something that unfortunately is relatively common. You might even find that your anxiety affects your eyesight. So these symptoms can be very, very far-reaching, and they can have a real impact on all aspects of your life. This could cause your behaviour to alter, and it can also affect your sense of self and your relationships. So the longer-term consequences of living with anxiety, what are these? Well, we know that when anxiety is acute and it's related to a one-off event, like your driving test, for example, it might result in some unpleasant feelings for you, both physically and mentally. But in some ways, these functions within your body were designed to handle one-off events. The sudden threat that pops up to ambush you, just like what happened to our ancestors all those years ago. But the real problems begin with anxiety when it becomes long-term and chronic. Because the chemical and biological functions involved in anxiety and that response of your body and the consequences of those prolonged stressful experiences or repeated ones can place undue pressure on your physical health. Years of research has shown us that prolonged anxiety can really have an effect on your body. And that means it can affect your vascular system, your heart, your neurology, that's your brain, and its functions. And it can also affect your digestive system. In fact, nearly every body system can suffer when your anxiety is chronic. The strain can also affect your immune system and of course make you vulnerable to all those infections. But a lot of those physical conditions that might result from chronic anxiety may not appear overnight, but they build up, they snowball, because your body's been under all that strain for weeks, for months, or even sometimes years. A lot of people might understand that as burnout. So, science tells us the facts. Anxiety is very bad for you physically, as much as it is emotionally, mentally, or socially. So, what can we do about this? What can we do about anxiety? The great news is, and I genuinely enjoy telling people this because when it comes to anxiety, it is supremely treatable. In fact, there are so many treatments and interventions that are effective in its treatment that it's not really possible for me to mention them all in this video. There are medications, but also a wealth of talking therapies and holistic ones. Diet, exercise and lifestyle changes are also hugely effective in the treatment of anxiety. And there are plenty of non-invasive options for you to try when you're looking to tackle your own anxiety. So this is about what is right for you. So whoever you are, whatever type of anxiety you're experiencing, it's likely that there is a treatment or intervention that will be suitable for you and effective for your particular condition so that you'll be able to lessen, reduce, or even eliminate that for you. Your mind truly is beautiful and powerful, and with the right tools and support, it can overcome anxiety so that you can move forward with living a more calm, happy and healthy life. So yes, anxiety might be common, and yes, it might be everywhere, but that doesn't mean we've got to live with it. The act of just speaking out and reaching out to others and gaining some social support around that anxiety can also be hugely helpful. So talking about it really does help. Now, all of our therapies here at We Help People are useful in the treatment of anxiety, panic, and phobia of all kinds. So if you're struggling with this condition, please remember that you're experiencing something normal and that there's something that can be done about it too. You've got every reason to be confident that you can successfully treat and overcome this condition with the right support and tools. Your GP is an excellent place to start if you think you've got anxiety, and they can talk you through some options for treatment. Or if you'd also like us to advise you further with some resources, just drop us a line. Currently, we do have a free introductory course available for you, all about how ACT can help you to tackle some of your anxious feelings and increase your resilience. And also, John Paul has a lovely little video on this section of our site, and that can teach you to use breathing to help. And that can help when you feel anxious too. So please make use of our free resources. Thank you so much for watching this video. And as ever, let us know your thoughts and just reach out to us if you're struggling.